Hi everyone, welcome to the Property Finance Podcast, and today I want to reinvigorate a series that we started just over a year ago, I think, which was a series where we were going to talk through running a live deal. So for me, this is one of the most important series that I think we could ever run. Now, when we ran it last time, unfortunately, the deal that we were going to run with didn't actually come off. We ended up actually doing lots of other deals, but stupidly didn't make a series about it. So I've sort of sat down and gone through what we've got in the pipeline, what we're working on, what I think would make a good deal. And the one that I've decided on it's a bit of a weird one in that it's not actually mine personally, although I am heavily involved in it, and it is with my JV partners, but it's a deal that started before I became a JV partner. So what this is we're going to talk through a live deal that I am involved, but not actually a shareholder of this one. But what it will do is it will probably lead on to a series where we talk about obviously one that I'm involved in personally. The ones that I'm involved in personally have already kicked off, and I feel like if we ended up doing some episodes that went back, it wouldn't feel quite right. But if anyone's interested in kind of following a series of deals that I'm involved in personally, please do let me know. Please reach out, because it would give me the confidence to then put those deals out there. So please do reach out. Please let me know if those are deals that you want to hear things about. This deal in particular is one that has been going on for a year already. So I am going to have to kind of give a bit of history to then catch up, basically. So this deal started a year ago. It was presented at the same time as another deal. So this was presented at the same time as the Whole Beach deal. So I've spoken a lot about the Whole Beach deal. I've spoken a lot about that on Instagram especially as well. So that's the 13 houses where there was a large deferred payment. So this deal came along at the same time as that. So this is a deal in a place called Cubbit. And what happened was this deal was presented to us, because I was involved in the negotiation of this as well, presented to us as a development site potentially for 5 units. And what happened was looked over the deal, worked out all the numbers, and the purchase price was then decided at £850,000. Pretty decent purchase price for the site. The site kind of stacked up on 5 houses. It had outline planning for 4 houses. So it had outline planning. There's a large engine shed on the site, and it had planning permission for the demolition of that, and then the commencement of 4 units. The 5 units element comes from, we'd measured the site and saw that there was space for a 5th unit. So there's outline planning for 4, plan was to go in, amend that, go for 5. What happened was the site was agreed at 850, that was 470 up front, and then 380 deferred. And what we did is we ended up purchasing the site on a bridging loan, because outline planning meant that we couldn't go for development finance, but the planning permission was close enough that we were okay. So we thought, well, you know what, we'll go on a bridge. And that bridge completed in January 2024, should have completed in December 2023, but unfortunately trickled over into the start of 2024 due to Christmas, delays, everything else, all the usual stuff that you get. So what had happened was the bridging lender had actually offered to lend £380,000. And what had happened is that there was cash available to essentially top it up to that 470. So cash had kind of come from the Whole Beach site, everything else. So there wasn't actually any necessarily cash into that deal from us, but because we kind of pulled it from other places, but there was a bit of a cash input. So they lent £380,000, which at the point that the bridge is paid back, that'll be about $415,000. And what was then agreed is the deferred payments that we were making is, rather than doing it as one lump payment, it was going to be made in a series of payments of about 65,000. And those payments are now up to date at the point of recording this. We're now in mid to end July of 2024. Those payments are now up to date. So that site is owned now with no deferred payments on it whatsoever, but with a bridge of, call it 415,000. So there's about £435,000 worth of equity in that site. However, what has happened to date is that the 5 units unfortunately didn't work, then went for amended planning to get 3 units, and then the conversion of the barn into a 3,500 square foot detached mansion, we'll call it. In fact, actually, I think at the point that the Class Q went in, it actually went in at 4,500 square feet. So really quite a substantial space. What has then happened since then as well is that the height of the site has become an issue. So where the 3 houses were going to be 3-story, they now have to be 2-story. So what essentially the amalgamation of all of these planning issues has ended up so that the planning permission we've had to go with is actually just the 3 on their own without the demolition of the barn. So that's gone through. So we've got 3 2-story houses as opposed to 3 3-story houses. So the GDV has had a bit of a hit. I've spoken on previous episodes of the podcast about the square footage of the houses. We were initially going for 2,500 square feet on the houses, then 2,200 square feet on the houses, then now 1,900 square feet on the houses. We then had a plan to get it back up to 2,500 square foot. That isn't going to work, so we've got to stick at the 1,900. So this one's been a bit tricky, to say the least. So where we are, I guess, at the moment, and this is where the live deal element of it is going to start, is we have just gone in for development finance for the 3 units on their own. The barn is now going in for an amended Class Q because the Class Q rules have changed. So you can now fit up to 10 units on the same square footage. I'm not a planner, so if I've got that wrong, you'll have to tell me off. But the rules have changed, as far as I'm aware, to allow you up to 10 units on that square footage that the barn or agricultural building sits on. So where we were having to go for 1 unit at 3,500 square feet, we've now managed to get 2 units on there, which has been quite good. So we've actually managed to fit 2 units at 1,900 square feet each. So actually we are now pushing back to the 5-unit development. However, we've had to go for development finance for the 3 on their own because 1, the bridge is now coming to an end. So we need to get off that bridging loan as quickly as possible. The second one is that we can't really wait for the Class Q to come through. So we've kind of had to split the site in 2, basically. So where we're at the minute, development finance on the 3 units, amended Class Q has gone in for the barn to convert the barn into 2 units. And where the development finance is concerned, what we've had to do is we've had to go for, initially these 3 units were going to be worth 625, 650 a piece. Because of market softening, etc., they're now only going to be worth 575. Estate agent is still adamant that they're going to be worth 625. Valuer is adamant they're going to be worth 575. So we're kind of mixing between the 2. The lender has to go based off the valuer. So we're now working off a GDV that is significantly less than we thought it was going to be. It's 1.725, if I've done the maths in my head right. Whereas we were working on a GDV of, over 1.8 million. It makes a difference when you're kind of running these numbers. However, the barn on its own is worth 250 grand with planning to turn it into 1 unit. So we've managed to kind of bump that into the GDV as well. So the GDV we're actually working off is closer to kind of 2 million because we can kind of incorporate the residual value of that barn in. So when all's said and done, we can kind of get all the figures to work out on just the 3. But it's put us in a hell of a tricky situation because obviously, if that bridge expires, we're going to be on default interest. We're going to have all kinds of issues coming out of the back of the bridge. So we've really now up against it timescales-wise to get this deal over the line as quickly as possible. So what I'm going to do over the next, I'd imagine 12 to 15 months is kind of run you through this deal every single step of the way. I think we'll probably end up doing an update on it monthly. I think that's probably sufficient. I think any more than that and it'll become quite overwhelming. But you know where we stand at the minute. We've done the site clearance. We've had numerous issues with planning that I've mentioned. We've had numerous issues with designing, numerous issues with reports, everything else. It's been a hell of a site, a real hell of a site. But that also makes it perfect for talking through because there's been no end of issues already that we can go through. And I can kind of talk at it from a finance perspective, but also being boots on the ground, I can kind of talk about the issues that we have there as well. So what we'll do is we will track it through for the next 12, 15 months. I'll do monthly updates on the site. Fingers crossed by the time I do the next update, which hopefully will be kind of mid-August, mid-September, depending on when this goes out. Hopefully this site will have started and I can talk around, obviously, foundations, everything else. And we'll also do a series of videos, whatnot as well, that will be released on social media as well. So that is going to be the live deal over the next 12 to 15 months. I promise not to disappear after 2 episodes again, like I did with the last one. But hopefully, because this one's owned already, we shouldn't have any major issues with getting this one through as a podcast series. So yeah, really looking forward to sharing this one over the next 12, 15 months. If anyone's got any questions about it or want me to talk about anything in particular detail with it, please obviously reach out and let me know. But I would really love it if this podcast in particular, if you don't share any other podcasts, that's fine. But this podcast in particular, if you can share it on social media, let people know that it exists, get as much traffic to it as possible. I think this is going to be the most valuable podcast series that I ever do. So once a month, updates on the deal. But yeah, please just share the absolute hell out of it and get people on it as much as possible. But other than that, that leaves me to say thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.